Well, then I'm gonna start. I just want to say, first of all, oh, wait, did you say something?
No. Go ahead. You got this.
Go. I want to welcome everyone to the Coffee Talk Podcast number 21, lucky 21.
Damn.
And we have a very, very special guest, Ziggy D, who has graced us with his 5 a.m. somehow chipper self, which is incredible. And so I'm personally very grateful for that. I do want to say that we've been very fortunate to have such great guests on the podcast, and it's entirely due to Noogie setting it up. So I know I want to say thank you to Noogie for putting this all together.
Oh, you're welcome.
I just sort of showed up, so it was like he did all the work. So yeah. So yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you, and thank you Ziggy for coming.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, you guys. I'll try my best to be entertaining at this hour of the morning, but I got some coffee. It'll be okay. I got a jar of coffee. That's how much coffee.
Well, at least it makes two of us.
Yeah, see, I don't drink the coffee, so it's like I'm the weirdo. Now, you have an opening statement that you have prepared, right, Noogie, about the charges that have been leveled against you, in the trial, right? You can go ahead and say that right now.
Something. Boop. There we go.
Are they power and frenzy charges that have been leveled against you?
Wait, could we do it? We should just restart because I actually didn't notice, but I had music running in the background. I just didn't. It flew so well. No, it's just if I have to upload it.
Oh, will they block it?
Yeah, they might.
Okay, well, so very quickly. Coffee Talk Podcast number 21 with Ziggy D early in the morning. And yeah, okay, there we go. Very brief in case they block it. So Noogie and I were talking about before you came on, Ziggy. One of the things we really, I don't know, you might have talked about it somewhere. I've watched, I would say, a lot of your content. I do want to say I haven't watched everything because you are like, is it content king? Was that the safe thing to say about PoE at this point? You're the content king in terms of YouTube and everything?
No, it's like these days, man, there's a lot of people making a lot more content, so I got some competition,
okay.
man.
Yeah. But so what do you think? I'm just like, I know we were both curious, like what makes you the person that seems to be, man, like I would think you'd be first on GGG's list, for a special release or a YouTube thing or whatever. Like what about you makes you the person that they want to, be first on that list? Do you have anything you think is like, what is your best selling point in some sense?
Damn, man. Whew. Damn. Ooh, too much flattery.
Well, laying it on there?
Thank you. A little, I'm feeling a little greased up, a little battered up for the podcast now. I see what's going on here. No, when it comes down to it, man, I think I've been there since before Val was added to the game making videos. That was when I started making videos. And my videos were like garbage back then, and I was a complete and utter noob. But since then, I have 1,800 videos on YouTube, I think. Wow. And probably like 1,400 to 1,500 of those are the Path of Exile. So if nothing else, to not like, toot my own horn, if nothing else, just sheer volume is kind of like got me there, I guess. Like if you throw that much shit at the walls, something is gonna stick, right? So there's at least a few good guides and videos in there, and I think those have caught people's attention over the years. But no, just consistency, man. Over that time, I've been one of the only people that has been for that entire time making content. So whereas we've had people that have made more successful content than me in that time, like for example Criparian, his videos would have gotten more views than mine when he was blasting out PoE content, but he left.
Yeah,
he left us. But I kind of I stick it out.
Wouldn't you say though you're on that note, Ziggy? Wouldn't you say that you're covering different bases though? You and Crip, like even if he was there, he might pull in more views. But I would say that that's more his personality they're tuning in to, or at least largely because of it, and yours is more content driven.
You saying I have no personality? No,
I do, but if we're just being like, he was like probably one of the biggest personalities who have graced PoE so far, and so
yeah, to the level that he played for sure. Yeah, for me, it's always been like more technical content, personality second, content first has always been my content approach. Only more recently have I like let kind of, I guess, personality take the reins and taking a little bit more of an entertainment focus as I've kind of like settled into things and started streaming more. But certainly initially, because I started out as a YouTuber before I started streaming for quite some time, it was always, you know, here's the technical stuff, here's the topic, here's the content. And I guess over time I've developed a bit of a knack for breaking down complex things into very simple, understandable ways, and that has caught the attention of a few developers, not just Path of Exile devs, and they see that and they're like, oh, well, you know, that's helpful content. We want people to get into our game, and you know, we don't have a tutorial in our game yet. They're finally getting one here, but up to this point, they didn't have a tutorial, so that was kind of, I guess, the unofficial tutorial for a lot of people.
Well, you know, and the funny part for me is I always, if somebody asks me, do you have a tutorial for PoE? I mean, I just shamelessly just plug your channel. And then, you know, and I like to give people options. Like if Ziggy's not for you, like you could try Lifting Nerd, maybe there's somebody else, but it's just like, I tend to be I know for me, why you're doing it so well. I'd rather just send them to you. You know what I mean? Because your channel's got all the stuff they could ever need. And so, but I was reflecting on it since we've been doing this podcast, and, you know, I don't know if people know this, but one of the earliest things I've ever done in PoE in terms of like a media thing was actually a podcast with Ziggy D. Like, God,
which one was
4
that?
years ago. It was the second thing you ever did, basically, for a podcast like of nature.
We did a racing one, didn't we?
Yes, season 1.
That's it. It was like the second podcast, yeah.
Yeah. But so, you know, I was just like, when Nugiyen and I were talking about having you on, I was sort of thinking about what's something interesting to sort of hear you talk about. And I wonder what your perspective is on the fact that you visited GGG, what, 3-4 times now? I don't remember the exact number. You're definitely very close with them, 3 times maybe. You're close with them. They clearly value your input and stuff. So does that create a situation where it's tougher than it might be for some things? Like, I know you could take it from me. Sometimes I criticize them, but I do genuinely like them. But also sometimes I come across like a bit of an ass in some of the things I've said. That's just a little bit my personality. I feel bad about that. On the other hand, I feel passionately about the game. So it's like trying to navigate this thing. Now, obviously, you're not an ass like I am, but on the other hand, you have way more access than I do, or ever. What, you know what I mean? You're like, you really know some stuff. So you think it's tough to like navigate those things where you're like, well, I've seen, you know, I don't know, I can't think of an example. I've seen things that no one's supposed to see, and so, but I don't want to, you know, violate that trust or anything. But I also want to talk about where the game's going and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
It does add like a few extra layers of things that you have to navigate. So there's a few aspects to it. One is stuff that you can't talk about yet, right? And like 100% I want to respect that sort of thing. I want GGG to be able to announce things when they're ready to announce them, you know, and to not like leak stuff out and things like that. Because like that'd be the fastest way for me to lose their kind of confidence in that regard. You know, I do when I do those trips over there, I just happen to see things, even if that's not like the focus of what I'm there for. You know, there's devs working in the office on things, and I might walk past. But I have a kind of a unique talent. I am extremely good at forgetting things. So actually, Amy and I have just been rewatching an anime that we watched like a year ago. And for me, it's like rewatching the entire thing again. I can't remember any of the plot or story. She's like, oh, I love this next episode. I'm like, how do you remember any of this? I can't remember anything. So I can like rewatch movies year after year and completely forget them. So I'm very good at forgetting things that I learn while on those trips. So it makes it really easy to not talk about this stuff. I don't know if this is like a talent or a skill, but it has helped here a little bit.
Well, you know, and that's such a funny thing, because it clearly that also is good. You get a sneak peek and you're like, oh, it's really cool. You forget about it, and it comes out, you're like, wow, this is really cool. And I remember from before, it's like triple cool or whatever. So, because I remember, I think Green. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Green Dude was over there, and he was saying, he was telling me, he was like, you're gonna be so blown away when you see it, and that was all he would say. And I guess it was a Malachi's fight, and I was like, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, you're seeing that 6 months before. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah. The other thing that is kind of, I guess, important to mention about this sort of access, I guess, is how it affects how you, I guess, discuss things in terms of like criticizing the company and stuff like that. I think you kind of touched on that a little bit when you were talking earlier, and that's an important one to kind of remember, because I get to meet them. I hang out with Chris. We go out for burgers and stuff like that, and you get to kind of see them much more as people than when you do when you're just kind of like on the forums and that sort of thing. So the only thing that I think that has really ended up changing is just the just kind of the what is the word when you kind of understand someone else's feelings, you can put yourself in their place a bit. Empathy, that's the one. It's given me a little bit more empathy for them in terms of like the way I approach criticizing them. It hasn't really changed how much I criticize them, I don't think. And but just reminding me to be like more constructive with it, and to not get personal with this stuff. Like that's never been kind of my style really, but it does remind me every now and then when I'm like, oh god, am I like, is the way I'm saying this now gonna kind of make Chris feel depressed? And I don't want to make anyone feel depressed, man. So I try to keep it critical in a constructive way, So that's kind of the only other thing. But you get to know them as people. So I guess the other. Go ahead.
You haven't felt at any point that you kind of like were holding off a little bit on some of the criticism? Like, let's say it was specifically one of the developers that you maybe had a good relationship with, that you knew were behind some change. You would never, or have you ever encountered like a time where you felt like you actually started to hold back a bit because it was a specific person within the office?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing about it actually, is if you know that this change that you think is not very good has come from a specific person and you know who it's come from. Yeah. It's a lot easier if I don't know who's done the change.
Yes.
But I have noticed times when I'd be like, I feel like I want to hold back here, and then I have to make a conscious effort to not do that, because I think that's really important for like the trust of my viewers and everything, to not hold back when it's that case. But just kind of, again, just be aware of like the tone that I'm presenting the criticism in. Just not be like, this change is fucking shit. Oh, am I allowed to swear on this podcast, by the way?
Yes. Oh yeah, you can go right ahead, say whatever you want.
Great. Yeah, so I try not to get like full wine mode, but I just just kind of keep that in the back of my head. But yeah, no, it can actually take a conscious effort to all right, so am I holding back here? Do I want to actually, blast this a bit more? Because I think it is important to do that, even when you know who it is, and even when it might hurt a bit. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of like, oh god, I've met this person, I hung out with them, and they're really nice and they're really cool, and I bet they've like put some like love into this, and it doesn't work. This is not the right approach. But all right. But I think in the end, you're doing them a disservice if you hold back. So,
yeah,
that's the thing.
So okay. Now I'm curious. What is your if you remember the time? I mean, for me at least, the time when unfortunately I felt like I burned a bridge a little bit with GGG is when the whole unique stuff happened, where they changed the drop rates of uniques. My unique was like more common than gold rim. All these other things. I had a sort of a rant on my stream. I didn't make a video. It wasn't like a video. So that's the only thing that saves me a little bit. But I was pissed and I said some bad words and, really just looked like an ass. I mean, I don't know if you remember that. I'd be curious, like what your, I'm not like, I don't want to grade of what I did, but curious what your thoughts are, because I kind of felt like if the video doesn't happen, I actually don't think they do anything. But because the video happened and it got so many responses on Reddit, that forced them to be like, okay, we have to address this because there is a problem. We did screw up something, but then on the other hand, I did act like an ass. I apologized, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So I'm just curious. Like it's actually been so it's weird, and I said it at the time. I like that something changed. I wish I'd done it differently, but I also am sad about the fact that it does feel a little bit to me like if there's not a Reddit drama thread, some of that stuff really just gets ignored a little bit. I don't know if that's your impression or what you think about that, or
it's 100% true that certain things aren't going to change immediately. unless there is a large amount of attention drawn to them in the form of a Reddit thread or a video or something like that, right? So yeah, like I've even used the same approach about something that I thought was important, which was boss immunities. I made a video a while back that was basically, you know, blasting boss immunities for like 10 to 15 minutes. But, you know, I think that's worth doing. Yeah. I think it's we have this tool when we think something's important, and especially if you know other people think it's important too, then I think it's important to, you know, use that tool, and it does have an impact for sure. Like well, I don't know if how directly it had an impact, but it at least opened up the dialogue between me and Rory. Ended up doing like an interview about it and talking about it, and you know, there's changes coming in that regard now, or other things are changing. So with the new element system, potentially boss immunities are completely going. So I was kind of happy with the results of that.
Oh, nice.
On that, actually,
go ahead, Nuggy.
Do you feel like sometimes they're just, I don't know, because the thing with boss immunities, it's something that is really important, but sometimes it's just not discussed a lot, and maybe it's like at the office they might just not like they're how close do you feel like they're in tune with the player base? Because something like that has more of an effect on the players, and it might not really, and it's more of a niche issue for the players, so it might not be something that is spoken about that much, and so it's less of an, I don't know, it might seem less of an issue at the office, right?
Yeah, I think that definitely is the case for some things where their perspective is different, right? As developers, I think there's kind of like there's two types of kind of like two categories of developers at GGG, like especially the ones that have come from the player base recently. I think they probably think a bit more like players, and the guys who like they play a shitload, and then the like the rest of them that are like more experts on the, you know, here's how we like develop the game, and here's how we like point its direction and things like that. So like Neon, for example, I think he's a top tier player, man. He's kind of like he's a god of PoE. He's come up with some like, you know, insane stuff, and plays the game a shitload. And I know from when I was there, like that he, you know, he works on PoE all day. It's, like he often stay into the evening. Like, I would go in at like 8 p.m. and he'd still be there, and then he'll go home and like play some PoE. So
for those,
like I think for him, he thinks like a player more than he thinks like a dev probably. Though it definitely changes your perspective having the insight into like, you know, what's happening internally.
One thing about about Neon, especially when you say that, it's recently I don't know if you've noticed, but we have on Reddit, for instance, a lot of memes going around, especially the when Chris posted the latest response to the manifesto, he posted the we have some experts on PoE, and I would definitely regard Neon as an expert. And when I think it's good to give like we do right now. Especially when it coming from you, when you've seen firsthand how he works, because I think there is this perception throughout the community, at least throughout some of the community, that there's a lot of bad players and they don't even play their own game and all these kind of things. So I think it's great to hear, at least, especially since Neon has been part of the game for so long and been part of the process for so long. I like just to get that perspective.
Yeah, so like the thing about that is, so besides Neon, like the guys who don't have like a public profile that people see playing a shitload, a lot of them do play a shitload, but a lot of them play on like their builds, their internal builds. Like they play amongst themselves. So when I was there, basically what they did was they just set me up with a computer and gave me the access and tools and set me up with an account and stuff like that. And I was just able to be on their like internal build and playing on their internal builds. And there's people running around on there testing all sorts of things. So sometimes they, you know, can like put together a character using like their cheat tools and then test some high level content. And they do that pretty liberally to test things without, you know, the time spent doing it. But sometimes they'll just play through and they'll have characters that they're like leveling and stuff. And there's like people in town and stuff. And they're just the other people. They're just the devs in the office. It's kind of weird being like on the internal build and just seeing like devs in the office and stuff being in there. And you're like, hey, I know each one of these guys is like a dev that's playing right now. So you kind of get to see that stuff. And I would go over to the QA team and be like, hey guys, can you can you set me up with like this character or something like this? And they'll come over and they'll like show me a few different builds and things that they got working on. Or, you know, if I'm looking at one of the new skills, they'll like bring over some characters that they got that are like abusing these new skills. And kind of like, you know, there's been some memes about like the hidden secret GGG builds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I have seen some of the hidden secret builds, like none specifically for these memes recently. But I have seen like for when new skills will kind of come out later on, they'll have some like builds and I'm like, holy shit, that's broken. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna have to change this. So like them testing that sort of stuff is like, yeah, we put together this guy on QA put together this like broken ass build, and I'm like, holy shit. You don't see that sort of thing on live all the time. So that can be pretty insight, like, I guess give you some insight.
Yeah.
But don't you think that that the player base has a bit of a point? Because one thing I've always said for a long time is there are times when something happens and I go, there's to me two answers. Either Neon's stupid, and of course I don't always say it, but the implication is I don't think he's stupid, right? And he knows what's the right answer, but then they don't do that. So then it's like, so then that means they're not listening to what Neon's saying, and that's sort of where I think people feel there's a disc. Because I know two, at least I said in that Reddit thread, I know two of the people. I know their actual private accounts who now work at GGG, like from being as a player, and I'm sure Ziggy knows who they are too. And they don't want people to know they're you know, but these are players who've been playing forever. They know so much about PoE, and so then that always forces me to like, I question a little bit what's going on then, because I can't see them agreeing that such and such is bad or good and allowing it to continue, but then it does or it doesn't, etc. So it's always been a little confusing to me on that. I don't know what you think, whether I'm wrong or.
So you mentioned two options there. I think there's three options. So it's when something happens and you're like, what the hell is this change? It's like, okay, either the development team's stupid, which not often the case,
right?
Or you know, they know what's going on, but they've chosen to go a different direction, which either is bad or is you know, is not to our taste or something like that. Then okay, and then the third option is that they're making this change kind of like in a context of some future vision which hasn't been communicated yet, and that has been happening especially recently quite a lot. And you know, it's kind of like as a result of the betas, them rolling out changes without having like the manifestos saying, so you know, here's kind of like our vision, here's where we want to get with this, and here's some other changes that need to happen alongside of this change for it to make sense. So when there's been that sort of communication, there's been a lot less kind of outcry over changes, even changes that, if looked at alone, would look pretty bad. So like we've had kind of recently as well, like just looking at the charge change by itself, like.
What do you think about Chris going out being very critical about the community in their response when because to that point, right, when they're not upfront with the manifesto or communicating changes that are to come, you can't really, at least from my point of view, you can't really then go out and be upset about how the community approaches it when you full well know that you're showcasing things that have no cohesion, or like they're either breaking builds or they're removing things from players that feel like they're being wrongfully targeted and all these kind of things. And obviously they will then have like they will voice their concerns in a big way, and often in a loud way, and then sometimes in a little bit rude way.
See, I didn't read Chris's post that way. I read it more like, we realized that the problem here in the way you're reacting is because we didn't give the information that we normally give. Okay. That was kind of like the way I read that post, which I like. People have been saying that the community overreacted to these changes, but I think they reacted. Well, there's always some people that are like, you know, GGG, fuck you, stuff like that. But I would say, like, on the whole, people were kind of just reacting to the limited information they had, like you're saying, Nugi. And I think that's to be expected. And that's kind of what I got from Chris's post, that they kind of like, yeah, okay, so looking at the way we revealed this stuff, your reaction was somewhat expected. Although I do kind of have a little bit of a giggle and smile to myself when Chris is like, you guys are being fucking idiots right now. Calm down. Because I'm like, sometimes the community needs that, I think. A little bit of a, look, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in you guys. I love when Chris pulls out the disappointment look. It's so good. He's done it a couple times, every now and then. And it's only usually when people are getting a little crazy.
Well,
like,
you know, and it's disappointing, you guys. It's interesting to me you say that, because to me, I think it's been warranted in almost every situation except for the League. I thought the League Stone exploit thing, I thought was handled, and he was kind of getting mad at the community for the reaction after the fact. And I just sort of felt like, yeah, but if you guys had, the moment you patched it, said, here's what happened, here we caught it, and 20 people were doing it, then it doesn't spiral out of control by letting people, you know, speculate. And it's so it's interesting. I definitely agree with you, but it's been weird lately where in the past they would have had a whole, you know, like the Kiwi halt, right? They had a whole post about what went wrong with the servers and everything. And to me, that's such a big, if it is such a potentially game-breaking thing that's going on, that seems like it warrants an after-action report, and they weren't going to do that. That's sort of, it just seems to me that their priorities have changed a little bit. I don't know if you agree, and that's why there's some of this tension has arose where in the past it wasn't always there, because they would make
when it comes to exploits, I know they're a lot more, and like cheating and botting and stuff like that, I know they're a lot more cautious about making a lot of that information public because of how it affects their dealing with that. But I mean, they're still doing that sort of thing, like with the microtransaction system failures. They've been super open about that.
True, that's true.
So, yeah, same sort of responses.
Yeah, that, I guess that's fair. Yeah. What do you, so, you know, I'm curious, what do you think about the fact that they did all this stuff, right? It failed all these times, and then it really worked. And I kind of, it's weird, I didn't notice as much joy as I would have expected from the fact that they really were open about it. You know, people were just like, yay, it finally worked on Reddit. It was more, I don't know, it's weird. It feels like, I don't know. I'm just curious from your perspective, since you're like Nugi and I have been playing for so long.
You mean like people weren't kind of appreciating their openness with that as much?
Yeah, yeah. You know, because it was like their failure was displayed for the world to see. You know, all steps.
Yeah,
of it. Yeah. So.
I think people were appreciative of that, but like in a different way. People showed their appreciation for their openness in that by not like being super salty at GGG. Okay, by not being assholes to them, be like, you fucking incompetent fools, how can you not roll this out after this many tries? Why do you keep putting it out and then getting it back? I want my microtransactions in the race. Like, people weren't freaking out nearly as much as they could. I thought people were gonna like go crazy about this. Like, after the like second time that it failed, I'm like, oh my god, Reddit is gonna be a shitstorm. Everyone's cool, man. They're like, yeah, just take your time, get it finished. You know, it's a shame we want our MTXs, but really we just want to give you more money because, you know, we love you guys. I'm like, damn, man.
It is.
So that was the result, I think, of their openness, which is
true.
Had an impact. That's all right.
It is actually. It is funny how this is one of the issues where I think that you are gonna get the most pushback from the community, because this is one of the few instances where it's really about money. There's not many other times in PoE where you can just like kind of shrug it off and say, well, you get this game for free. No, because in this instance, it's actually about money. People have paid for their microtransactions, and they're in the expectation that, okay, now it's coming, right? So let's say someone just prior to we're releasing it on Monday, okay, go out and buy. And then now we're like, they're getting the pushback, and now they can't actually use it in the way that they intended.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they could have been a lot more salty.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, people have put a lot of money into this MTX system and then not being able to use it in like the race that they really wanted to play or something. I was surprised we didn't see a lot more like saltiness about it. I think most people were just kind of like, oh, it's a shame, man. Like, and I think what I hear most often is people being like, wow, they must have lost a lot of money from not having this system up during the race. Like, I hope I hope that's okay. Like, that's the sort of comment I've been hearing much more often about this. Yeah, like whenever I'm, listening, clicking around other streamers and stuff like that, that's normally the sort of thing that I'm hearing.
So what why specifically with the race though?
What do you mean?
Well, it was the current content, right? I mean, I think that's just because...
And the beta as well.
Yeah, the beta too, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Because we know that last beta they lost a lot of money by everyone playing the beta and not having
the access to.
Yeah, they see their sales just go during the beta because no one's when you don't see MTXs, you don't tend. It's not
yeah, and it's not you're not even able to buy them either, right? You can click the thing and you're not even able to.
Yeah,
makes
exactly.
sense.
So.
Yeah.
Also, in fairness, and again, that's easy for me to criticize here, armchair programmer. I do think that the previous beta I don't want to say it's a failure, but it went on too long. You know, if the beta was 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I bet you that there'd be a drop, I'm sure, but not as much. But since it went on, I don't know, was it 8 weeks that the 2.0 beta or 9 weeks? It was a long time. It was a long time. Yeah. So anyway, I want to switch because I don't want to keep Ziggy here for 4 hours, although it's nice. We're curious about your thoughts on Xbox. I know that's a little bit of a dated topic, and that I think all three of us released a video on the topic. So that's how contentious it was. But
no, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
Well, so I watched mine. I watched Ziggy's. I thought I remembered Nuggy talking about it, but just like, what are your now? Here we are, 3 months later from the announcement. Like, what are your? I'm curious what you think about the whole thing. Do you think it's gonna be a positive? Do you think it's gonna be a negative? A wait and see. I know we were both in the wait and see category a little bit. So,
I'm like super curious to see just how well it does. D3 did pretty well on console. Like, their sales are pretty good. But this is a free to play game, and then on top of that, it's like a hardcore niche game, which you don't see as much on console, especially in like the free to play category. Most of the free to play console games are pretty casual. So I'm like super curious to see if there's a market there for it. Like, GGG have obviously done like their market research and stuff, and think that there's at least enough of a market there to warrant this kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm super curious to see that, guys. I honestly can't predict it. As for like how the actual console how the console version is, I played it when I was last at GGG. I haven't played it since its new beta, and it was quite a bit behind what it will be now in terms of development. But I was pretty impressed. I was like, having played D3's console port and being like pretty impressed with that as well. Like, wow, action RPGs can be pretty playable on console. Like, this is surprising. And given how much more complex and fiddly Path of Exile is, I was pretty impressed with how well it was done. Like, it all played very nicely. Obviously it's nothing like, you're not going to be able to kill monsters while moving, while also managing inventory while racing like you can on PC. You can't do any of that shit. But I was pretty impressed with how smooth it plays. The thing, like, this is the thing that kind of like I see people saying a lot, was like, yeah, I tried the console version. I'm gonna be sticking with PC, man. I'm like, obviously. I don't think this is gonna get anyone to switch. I think there's gonna be very few people that are like switch to console. But as for getting a new market, that's kind of where the interesting point lies. I'm curious to see if we get a lot of new players joining the community out of that.
Can I, I want to ask a question and tell me if it's over the line. I won't be mad if you don't answer, but I'm curious, given you're somebody who, I feel like is known in the ARPG market. I guess maybe you can't say, but I'd be curious if Blizzard would ever approach you to try to take you away from GGG, right? Because you see them, what are they doing? They did a free something weekend for the Xbox, given that PoEs was going into the Xbox beta. It seems like they're very aware. Okay. It does seem like Blizzard's very aware of what other companies are doing. I'm curious if you ever get the sense that they were, give you a free copy of something to get you to play that versus PoE along those lines.
Every gaming company gives streamers and YouTubers and stuff, especially, free copies of their game. That's like nothing. But as for like trying to poach people and like with sponsored content and stuff like that, Blizzard very rarely does that, actually. So they might be pretty aware, and they might kind of like just do their own thing. But I do see Blizzard as being aware, but they do tend to just do their own thing and maybe just coincide something alongside of the release, like like what you said with the freeware game. Like, that might have been a conscious decision. It seems highly coincidental otherwise. But yeah, no, they very rarely actually do any sort of sponsored stuff. I've never. Oh wait. For the original release of D3 console, I got like taken to Sydney and did like a video with some other guys for that. So that was ages ago. But since then, like, I have not known anyone to directly or myself have been offered like a sponsored thing for any of their games. They just don't seem to really operate that way. They're more like, we'll give you access to this stuff and we'll give you access to some developers to interview or something like that.
Right. Okay.
But no, they've never tried to poach me or anything like that, really. So yeah, like surprisingly, like I see that all the time from like other developers. So it's like I say, yo, I saw you covered this other MMO in the past. You want to do some content on this MMO we're making that's competitor?
Right.
So like
right.
I say that all the time, yeah, but not from these two.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that because I in the early days of PoE, Chris actually messaged me about trying out their game. Well, obviously at that point they were much smaller, so I think size matters a lot in terms of how you approach content creators as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's why I assumed ZiggyD was somebody who was going to be targeted, you know, as the the biggest YouTuber on PoE, right? By a huge, even over like Mathel has, I don't know, 70,000 subs, and you're well over double that. So something. I don't remember them exactly.
I think they do some sponsored content, but it's only for like much bigger, I think. Like, yeah, they do. Like some people in chat are saying that they did some stuff for like Heroes of the Storm and stuff like that. I don't know if they've ever done anything like with Crypt, for example, but if they are looking to do paid content, it's going to be more around that level.
You think that's more about the teams within Blizzard, or is it, or do you think they do these?
Might well be.
Yeah, because specifically to Heroes of the Storm, it could just be that one team that decided, well, we want to try and draw attention through these means.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like them kind of pushing the esports angle.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that with D3, so yeah.
Though on the Xbox, don't you think that this also could draw back a lot of people, for those who were overwhelmed maybe with all the PC and having to move all the things around all the time, who are just more comfortable on the controller? Because I've been reading some of the Reddit posts, some of the feedback people have been posting on both Xbox and the beta and all that, and I saw a lot of people coming back to the game because they were unable to play PoE because it was just too complex, too many things to press all the time.
Cool. No, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't really considered that angle either. It was like people who tried on PC but thought it was overwhelming coming back on console. But I guess it makes some sense, you know. It is a much like kind of slower, more like easy to process pace that you're going to be going at. You know, you got time to kind of like see the items you're going on. You're like, I'm going to get this item, then I'm going to like kind of scroll through my inventory, have a bit of a look. You got time to actually kind of look at the items. And then you see like, you know, us when we're racing on stream and we're like fucking boom, 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 and like like the time we spend looking at items when we're racing is is something that I think is really freaks out new players. Actually,
yeah,
is one of the biggest ones. Like we just go and flick over and you just like learn to kind of sight read the items.
Yeah.
And people are like, how do you even know what items you've got in your inventory? You're like, yeah, you just sight read, right? And it's like that sort of thing is like I think that's one of the things that kind of freaks people out a bit. So yeah, that you have time to kind of like process the information a bit more, I think. So that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Well, you know, and it's funny with all of the there's all these big name streamers that seem to come in like, I don't want to call them vulture streamers, but I guess it's variety streamers. But it seems like Lyric, we're gonna get Lyric, we're gonna get Dan's Gaming, we're gonna get, I guess, Waffle, who seems to be somebody related to Lyric. So I'm assuming there's gonna be other, like all the League players who have been playing PoE a long time. So I'm curious what you think, Ziggy, about the fact that or what, do you have any inside track on whether they're prepared for this? Because you know, it's a good problem to have that the servers explode because there's so many people playing the game. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on it.
I might like ask Chris about that because I'm a little concerned about that too. Free to play servers, very easy to access for the like 50 to 100k extra viewers that are kind of going to come along with them. Could be a concern. Yeah, this kind of caught me by surprise a little bit. I didn't know that, like, I didn't kind of realize that so many of those guys until I started, you know, hearing from people, and I started getting like 10 tweets a second on Twitter about like who was it? Lyric. And someone was saying, like, was it Lyric who was expressing interest in the game?
Yeah,
I think it was.
He was.
Lyric. Yeah, I was getting a bunch of tweets about like, hey Ziggy, Lyric said he's interested in trying PoE and is looking for someone or something like that. And I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, I don't know where this came from, where they all kind of decided at once, but I think they all kind of like interact with each other. I think
they were talking about trying out PoE. Like they were having a conversation about it, and then Lyric just in that conversation he just expressed like a desire to maybe try out PoE. And so for all of the people just following him there.
Yeah, I think he's been interested in the game in the past,
Mm-hmm.
but has never really wanted to dedicate too much time to it. And apparently he's been like looking for a grinding game or something. But I think those guys that you said kind of jump, the variety streamers that jump around to like the different hype games like Waffle and all that, they have a very good kind of like little hype signal thing in their head, you know, like my Spidey sense is signaling when it comes to like if there's a certain amount of hype for something that's coming up, they're like and they're like, ooh, okay, let's go have a look at this. And I mean that's their what they do for a living. So
yeah,
they've developed a keen sense for that sort of thing. I'm not even saying it's anything bad or anything. It's just kind of the way they, you know, perform their business. But so I guess that's kind of exciting then to know that PoE for this expansion has reached that level of hype that all of these guys all of a sudden are going
right.
Like,
yeah. I don't know if you saw there was a post as well from League. The commentators were talking about it as well during one of the live streams. Yeah.
Yeah, NALCS. They always have like a stupid intro when they cut to the shoutcasters, and they said something about I'm as hyped as I am for the new 10X next week, and they're both hyped about it. So yeah, I mean, it's clearly, I think we've reached market saturation when it comes to PoE at this point, when I think if you play video games, you know about the fact that 10X are coming for PoE. So it seems, I don't know. That makes me happy for sure, because I think that's really good for the game. I just remember the last time there was a bit of hype, I feel like it was Parandus. Maybe I'm wrong, or 2.0. And we had like a day or two of just massive queues, can't log in, things don't work, and it's not their fault. They tripled the normal amount. Chris, I think Chris even posted like we're like running and installing servers right now. Anyway, it's interesting to me. I'd love to know how hard it is for them to figure this out, because if I saw that Lyric, Dan's game, that's whoever is planning to come, I would be like, oh my god, are we going to have quadruple the amount of people we had last time? But then maybe not. Maybe it's just going to be a lot of viewers on Twitch and maybe not that many people playing, and that's so tough.
This is actually super important because there's a very tiny window for them to grab these people as well.
Right.
Like much like the streamers themselves as well, there's a pretty small window to grab their interest and like make sure that they have like a good experience with it. But the players that they bring with them, there's a very small window to grab them, and if they have like 2-3 days of launch like server issues, then that'll be enough to kind of like just miss out on a lot of that. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna ask Chris how just kind of like gauge how aware he is of that potential. Be like, oh yeah, I heard something about some streamers checking out, or if he's like, we're getting ready for this. I'm curious about that. So I'll find out. But yeah, it's kind of, I'm nervous about these big streamers checking out the game because I want them to have a good time, right? It's like when you're like showing your favorite movie to one of your one of your friends, and they're like, you're like, oh, get ready to watch this part, and they're like, they don't care, they're just like texting on their phone or something, and you're like, I want them to have a good time, man. So I'm nervous about that. Like, and I've seen so many times, people check out these things and they, for whatever reason, don't have a good time. But I guess PoE's now, a lot of the updates and stuff they've been doing, I guess there's the best possible chance now that people that haven't really played much trying it out are going to have a good time. And some of the clips we saw from some of the guys trying it recently were pretty good. Like Waffle discovering that you can put a spell totem on Firestorm and him just like freaking out about that. I was like, yes, that is exactly it. That's like, this is PoE. Welcome to PoE, man. If you see it, you see it. Yeah, that's good.
Well, and the interesting part to me is I watched Lyric a bit a long time ago, really when he was sort of discovering DayZ and stuff. I actually think maybe when he first met Waffle, I don't think they knew each other. I don't really know exactly, but it's interesting. I would almost eat my hat if Lyric played this game more than a couple of days. And maybe my impression of him is wrong, but it's just, and it's sort of interesting to me. What is it like when Lyric hypes up something and only plays it for 6 hours? I wonder if that's really bad. Like, is that bad for PoE? I kind of hope not, but my impression is he would not like this game. Even though he's tried it in the past, I watched his videos when he was trying it. It did not seem like it was for him. It's too long of a, like he likes driving the car. And so in PoE, it takes 15 hours so you can drive the car. Whereas in D3, you start driving the car right away, but that means the game ends sooner because you're driving the car right away. But PoE, you have to get to that point. And he doesn't seem like he wants to. That's just my impression.
Yeah, like the changes to support gems and stuff dropping at level 1 and stuff like that help with that a lot, I think.
I guess.
But your kind of concern, I think, will definitely. I think for someone lyric size, where he's bringing like what 30k viewers or something, he tends to average or something like that. With that many people, even if he just plays for 6 hours and doesn't really enjoy it long term, that's still good for the game. Because he's bringing just that many eyeballs that some people are going to look at that and be like, hey, this looks awesome, despite him not enjoying it. If someone like Crip, so someone who gets like a fair amount of viewers, but is much more of kind of like an opinion leader in that regard, then if he went and tried the game, like tried the latest expansion pack and thought it was shit, and like told people that I think that would actually, despite all the extra viewers, that would be a bad thing for the game and probably have like a longer term negative impact. By telling a lot of people to not even bother trying it, essentially. So there is that risk, but I think as far as like Lyric and that are concerned, just them playing the game for a couple of days is going to be a good thing, pretty much regardless of how much they enjoy it, unless they just like they think it's utter trash. But I don't think that's going to happen. Game's too good for that.
And even if they did, they're not really. They don't hold much of a. Would you think that within the genre that they like their word holds much value, like too much value, too much emphasis, even if they hate it? Wouldn't it just be shrugged off as maybe, well, it's just not a game for him?
Yeah, within the genre, yes, but there's a lot of players that might try the game that aren't action RPG players.
Yeah, that's true.
And their opinions will have an impact for them.
Yeah. I think Waffle, the little I know. I actually think the fact that Waffle seemed to like it is actually the best sign, because he seems to be someone he likes the genre. So him liking it, I think, matters as much as, honestly, since he has access to Lyric's people, it just, those types of people that are known as, like you're saying, if Crip said it was bad, that would be the death knell of an RPG, since he's, Mr. Inferno Diablo. So, okay. Well, so we do have one last topic. I don't want to keep Ziggy forever, but and this is not really about you, but maybe it's worth talking about it. Maybe it's like in like a round table discussion. Okay.
There are topics that aren't about me that are worth discussing.
I know. I'm just sassing you a little bit. No, I was just curious. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear Noogie's thoughts about the charges, frenzy power, and then I guess about shock and chill. I mean, that's the big story. And then there's all we kind of touched on Reddit drama a little bit. We don't have to go too nuts on that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the whole thing, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, this all changed, man. I honestly, at this point, after all of the back and forth that's been happening over the past few days, I honestly don't even know what to think anymore about this is good or bad or what. I think the main issue is more the way they presented this change and then the impacts that it has on various items and ascendancies and stuff like that. I don't think inherently the change is bad just by itself. Like making frenzy charge. So what if frenzy charges don't work for spellcasters? I can just use power charges instead, making builds slightly differently. But in terms of then less impactful, I guess. For casting. But if they're like, so what if it's like a little less impactful? It's more just about the this ascendancy doesn't make any sense now and this item doesn't make any sense now, and I can only assume that stuff's going to get fixed, right? Like that they're going to change some of this stuff. Maybe some items won't make as much sense anymore. I don't know, like Tinker Skin was kind of like the most hilarious example of it, but yeah, I mean, this is like when we had that ES, like when people were having that ES discussion, it's like it's probably going to be fine. Right. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, and the part to me that was so weird is I remember when they changed frenzy charges, and at the time I was like, I don't know why they're doing that. That made them way too strong. Yes. And here we are. Here we are. Yeah. With the initial when it was they gave you. Yeah. I guess they gave you just attack speed. I don't really remember. And
they gave you attack speed and cast speed only back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to me, it seemed that they wanted to shift how they were being used and who were using them. And they were putting in a rather big downside to them, with the physical damage taken instead of chaos. That was much harder to mitigate unless you're a melee or in the life-based tree with the endurance charges. And so they put a downside, and at that time it was very difficult to run the charges or obtain them. You didn't have all these ascendancies with on kill effects. You didn't have some of the uniques. There's like it's much harder to obtain them.
Yeah, but wait. But see, this is the point, and I think it's very good that Ziggy's here to kind of reinforce this a little bit. I feel like the frenzy charge was something that was part of the ascendancy change. It's just ascendancy was delayed to 2.1. It wasn't ready, or they weren't ready to release it. But all that thinking, like he was saying, they make a change, and I think it's stupid, or I think they're not listening to Neon. But in reality, they have a vision that hasn't been fully realized yet. We only see step 2, and they're working towards step 5. So to me, that's the part. And because I agree with you, if you take it as well, they weren't.
I think I have to disagree on that. I think it was mainly a melee buff.
Okay. I mean,
it came in with Fortify as well. It was a way to improve melee builds, and the whole design around them just felt like this was intended for melee builds. You see it now as well. The whole vision around it. This is why they're taking away spellcaster damage as well, right? Okay. Attack based. They were always intended to be for attacks. They just happen to be better on spells.
Right.
It's just, I think the weird thing is that it's been such a long gap between the change to make it work for everything and then changing it back to this compared to from where it was earlier, just about the attack and cast speed. And definitely frenzy charges were just like way too like permeating everything, right? Like every single build that could possibly in some realm of imagination get frenzy charges was getting frenzy charges, and like that sort of homogeneousness is not great, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I think like my brain tells me that it's not great. I don't know if it's actually an issue, but
well, and the part I don't understand about it is they're going to change it and they have a problem with it, but I still come back to I don't know if necessarily the way the charges were working, although maybe frenzy was too strong. It feels like it just became so easy to get charges, as Nugi was saying. You know, like I think of Skyforth, I think of I'm trying to think what else. You know, all the ways that
the overcharge node was one of the big things.
Yes. Okay, the overcharge node. Thank you.
Started using.
Right. So it's like I kind of want to be like, wait a minute. So if you're going to make this change, are you going to go through and fix all that stuff? Because it does seem like the big problem for them is they have a scalability issue where, and I think back to Moroi. I understand that Moroi was for a while the best unique or I should say like a really sought after unique because Earthquake was strong. It was relatively common. It was powerful, but it is in no way reflected in the way that item was actually designed. It used to be rare and insane top end damage, and you should kill yourself on reflect. That was the balance of it. So, and since they've changed two-handed weapons, you know, because they traded off top end damage for attack speed and all these other things they did, they never went back and fixed Moroi all this time. And like it kind of, in all honesty, cheapened the unique. So then it leaves me with the question: if they change as a core fundamental thing, are they going to go through and change the like what I assume are 50 uniques that deal with power charges, frenzy charges, or endurance charges? It feels like they really have to, but then they almost don't. You know, so it's I don't know. It seems like it's just a tough issue for them to solve, and it's why I'm always surprised when there's a change like this and it's not a core. Was this a core part of 3.0? Because if it was core, it would have been one of the first things they were doing, along with redesigning all the uniques, right? Maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but it feels like it was kind of put on at the end a little bit, and they're not quite ready for it.
Yeah,
that's just
coming so late, and also as like a sentence at the end of the little manifesto thing they did. Yeah, that's been like a big part of the way this has been received. I think
a sentence. Like, it seems like such a big change. How was it? Could you just reiterate how it was presented?
In terms of in the there was a manifesto, and there was like one sentence at the end that was like, by the way, we're changing charges.
Just prior to them actually going in and doing some changes, and then we just got them on live or on the beta without any other notes than that.
Yeah, there was no other like kind of explanation of their vision, their long-term vision, or their like other changes they were going to make in context. It was just like, here's some charge changes, by the way, tacked on the end. So that was a big part of the reception, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that post, because where was that? The manifesto was a response to people freaking out, wasn't it? They had something else. Was it a beta post? It was a beta update post, wasn't it? Where the actual, you're talking about the sort of the throwaway line happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Beta wave,
no,
beta wave
was
4.
Yeah, I think that was probably it.
Yeah, I found it. Another quick note: power charges now grant, etc., etc. So that goes through those. So that's it was like a PS at the end of the beta wave 4. Yeah, you know, and it's weird because I have to say, I don't know, people, I feel like people go to my channel seeking rage or, you know, screaming to the heavens about something. I kind of was just like, okay, you know, they're changing it, and I guess we have to, I don't know, I give a lot of credit to the community. I kind of don't know what to think until I see like 50 builds out there, you know, and then can sort of see what's going on and actually see it in practice, because, you know, people rant and rave about stuff, but until we see what's going on with people actually making builds, I'm not always convinced that things are necessarily as bad as they're making it out to be. Now, obviously, the builds that are maybe a staff crit build is totally screwed at this point, because
well, it's less powerful.
Yeah. So I understand those things, but you know, maybe that's better for the game overall. I don't know.
Well, I think something to, if you wanna look at something, for all the builds that are quote unquote destroyed, you see the immediate like the immediate reaction on the other hand is that Artilex and Void Battery immediately pop out again, right? They have been not utilized like at all for how long? Like, it's a wand, nobody uses a wand. Artilex has too much of a downside if you're using power charges. Like, immediately there's the other side of all the other uniques that people weren't complaining about because they hadn't yet invested their time into the builds that were utilizing some of the power charges or some of the other charges that are now buffed for these builds. So it kind of ticks me off whenever there's a shift in balance. People get really upset. I get that, because some people really just want to play their one build that they've gotten really comfortable with. But at the same time, one of the things I love about PoE and why I think it's so good that we have a power or a charge change is exactly when I listen to what you guys are saying. I don't know. The whole uncertainty, I think it's great for PoE.
Yeah. I think well, okay, I just want to say, I think the tough part is, and this is the bone that I always have to pick continually with Rory, is, okay. And, you know, and like I've said, Rory was at least 50% of the design of my unique, right? He had some really good insights. He clearly knows what he's doing. But I have to say, you know, like, and it's not the way to think about it, but like if Rory was designing a game, he was the only designer, and that was it. I feel like I would not play his game. And I'm trying to say this is not I'm not like mad or yelling or anything like that, but it just feels like his vision of what he has fun with, it differs from mine. And I think that the problem becomes, I mean, at least to me, I saw a clear shift when he became the guy who seemed to be designing stuff, and you know, he got rid of shotgun. He really does not seem to like the whole, like, as I said before, the battle mage, like the tanky mage person doing whatever. Those types of builds they're still around, of course, and they're bringing it back, like with Scorching Ray, because so many people complained, right? They're like, why can't I play this? So I understand that they're addressing it, but the fact that it was a problem in the first place, I think highlights where there's just sort of, at least my perception is, there's just like a different viewpoint. And I think people's problems are, what if there's no other thing that lets me do this, right? So like if there's no other way to play a melee crit build other than staffs or staves, and then that's removed, you're like, okay, or like, sorry, I mean, maybe like a two-handed build, two-handed crit, that's the only option, and then that's gone. You're left feeling, well, what am I supposed to do now? And I think that's a fair, I agree with that, since I went through it myself. I haven't found the incinerate / freeze pulse replacement yet.
It's like people playing Raider EK and stuff, for example. I think that's what they're feeling.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
There was I talked to Sis actually had a good idea. I don't know if it's his idea or if it was his channel's idea or whatever came about, but they did have the idea of combining or having more of a more multiplier on both, and whatever you had more of was your affinity, kind of. Or right, so if you had more power charges and frenzy, you would only gain the bonus from the power charges. But if you had more frenzy charges and power charges, you'd get the more multiplier on the frenzy charges. So you'd maintain some of that.
So what if what if you have 3 of 3? 3 and 3 then? What happens then?
I don't know. Maybe they got a half value. I don't know.
Sorry, I cut you off.
I think that could be. It was just one of the suggestions to keep some of the that seemed kind of interesting. And I know they forwarded it to Chris, who seemed to like the idea and forwarded it further. I do think that frenzy charges were very too prevalent, and I do think that if we restore their power, well then charges just becomes if you give all the power to all of the charges, well then just the charge system just becomes the thing to go to again, though. But with the frenzy charge, it was also a double dipping effect. It wasn't more spell damage; it was more damage, so it had more of an impact as well in the 2.6 meta. It wouldn't have as much of an impact in this new meta. So restoring some of the power might not be the worst thing in the world, even.
Well, 1.0, the 2.0, 1.0 until this release is, I think, going to be called the more era, because almost everything became about more. I mean, you know, and again, GGG, people work at GGG to be your geniuses, but sometimes I go, I don't know, how are we getting another more gem, more multiplier support gem? So you have your gem and then 6 mores. I mean, that's not really, that's sort of been something I've always, I don't know, I'm curious what Ziggy thinks about that, since he's seen behind the scenes. I just feel like we lost just a little bit of our, like, again, I think about that video. I talked about this before. That trailer video. Now, I was already playing PoE, so I guess it didn't really matter. But even as someone who played PoE, that trailer, which I think was for 1.0 release October 2013, where it was like a witch fires the fireball, then it's like, then there's a split screen, and then the fireball forks, and then split screen again, and the fireball splits into 5, and then split screen again, the fireball chains around. Like, that was baller, and I feel like we just lost that.
And then Waffle comes in and puts Firestorm on a spell totem.
Right, exactly. No, and so that's that thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, there's not the next step, I feel like, right now, because they're worried about balance. So, I'm sorry, rant over. But
I'm curious how you feel about the new support gems that have been, like, all this massive amount of new support gems we've got, Moz.
You mean like the melee one? What is it called again? The one that gives you 75% chance of huge burst of damage? You mean like those ones? Or
Yeah,
you mean...
and, you know, like Arcane Surge and stuff like that, because a lot of these are effectively more multipliers, but I think some of them are kind of interesting.
I think they're interesting because GGGs are really good company, but I don't think that they're interesting. I don't think they meet the bar that I set for them, if that makes sense, if you follow what I'm saying. Compared to the world at large, or Diablo 3, or God, or I don't know, they're interesting gems for sure. I just wish we got I'm just looking for and now maybe I'm missing the interesting thing.
Okay, so that I wanna ask you a question then, Morris. Don't you think you're asking for the impossible though in some of these instances? Because but think of something like GMP. What is the next step after GMP? Is it like a diamond?
Sept MP? Yeah, okay, right. Yeah. Okay.
Right, there is a design space, and there's only so much you can fill in here, and there's only so many variations of colors and of shapes and of such and such that you can combine. And there's like a limit to how many things you can realistically produce in a game, like on a programming level, and then how much you can actually just come up with. Like a circle can only be a circle.
Yeah,
I would agree. I can't come up with any ideas for support gems. When people ask me, like, what does support gem you make, Ziggy? I'm like, I have no idea.
Well, but like, I can already answer that. I would make the is it Ring of Blades? Is that the jewel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I would make that work for everything.
A Nova one.
yeah, like Nova of whatever skill supported. And like someone will say, well, what about something be super OP? I don't know, give it a 50% multiplier. I mean, I do think that part of the problem with some of this is, I think Noogie's right. I do have a little bit unrealistic expectations. I think because I'm used to, even though it hasn't happened in a couple of years, when they would patch once a week. So they would release something and go, whoops, we have made a mistake, and then they would get fixed, and then let them be a little more creative with some of this stuff, because I feel like I don't know, I just the more multiplier gems I guess are safer, but they also feel just, I don't know, slightly uninspired. And I get that it's weird for me to say it because I think it's such a well-designed game. That's why I'm saying. So it's not like
when everything has a more multiplier, nothing has a more multiplier, and that's kind of the direction they've gone. So if you just remove the fact that they all have more multipliers and look at the gems and the different mechanics they have, then, well, how do you feel then? If you can just like remove all the mores. I know some of them are just more damage, like, but you know, we had those from the very outset, things like added damage, added fire damage, or melee physical. They're just more damage. They're multipliers to a bit.
Right. Well, you know, and in fact, but I want to defend some of those. When those came out, you add, I remember my ground slime character adding added fire to him. I could die to reflect. You know what I mean? I mean, I was already watching out for Fizz Reflect because that would definitely kill me. But then it was like, I'm doing a lot of elemental damage now, and I could definitely, you know, mess myself up. So, you know, I think I do think you're right. I do think that some of the problem to me seems like once we lost shotgunning, and maybe, I just feel like we lost a couple of those trade-off things. You know, you fire 5 of them and do 25% damage or whatever the hell it is, so you get 125% damage with the ability to perhaps shotgun. When we lost some of that stuff, I think it makes, for me, it makes it a little not uninspired, makes it less, not as interesting as it used to be. It's the same thing with shock, right? People are freaking out about shock, and I want to be like, but I don't find shock very interesting in the first place. It used to be very interesting, and of course very dangerous for a player. And maybe what they've done is the right design. I don't want to speak to that. No one knows what's right. Maybe this is the good change. It just feels, I don't know, since it went from being 3 shocks of 50 or 3 shocks of 40?
Started at 50. Then it was nerfed down to 30, I think.
40. No, I thought it was 40.
Was it 40? It was nerfed down to a lower number. And then it was
lower number.
A static 50.
Then it was 1. Then it was static 50. And that's what it remains right now, right? Static 50?
No.
Oh, what is it now?
Now, well...
the new. Sorry, I'm not including the new.
Yes, so in 2.6, still 50.
Right, still 50. And then 3.0, it'll be up to 20.
Up to 50.
Up to 50 based on the percentage of damage over 4 seconds, or is that the cold? I mean, it's almost...
No, it's based on the relative amount of health removed. Will then give you a bonus, the increased damage from shock is gonna scale depending on the relative amount of damage you're doing.
And I mean, it does seem like this is part of the problem, right? Because I saw a Reddit comment saying, so if you manage to shock the target in a significant way, you don't need the shock because you're going to kill the target on the second hit, right?
Yes.
So
but you see,
go ahead.
That comment is based, like that comment is based on them not knowing the full extent of the design philosophy behind shock and the new approach that they're going to take to them. Because this is what they responded to in Chris's post, where nugiyen came in and talked about the shock and chill change and what they're looking to do with it to make it more interesting and to make it a new, like, something you can play with, right? You can play a lightning build, and then you can play a lightning build that adds shock as the additional layer to add into that, where you invest into shock to get the more damage, right? So that's the next step of getting more damage, is by then adding shock to it, rather than just being a binary on or off.
Right. So, like, the shock change in particular, I want to mention, because I quite like it. It's kind of a bit like, I don't know, I see it kind of like as a poison for boss killing for lightning builds now, because you get a little small shock and the next hit is bigger, and then you get a slightly larger shock, and you keep building up that shock. So each hit you're doing more and more damage, like when you're stacking poisons. So like you're getting more and more damage over time on the boss. And I quite like that system. Like, obviously, they said that these changes, the chill and shock changes, are not finished yet, and they have some more stuff to do to them. But I don't know. Everyone's been like saying these changes are garbage, but
Well,
especially the shock one, I quite like.
The problem with the shock right now is that even if you buff it a little bit, let's say you add 1% of extra damage. That 1% to your total damage is barely even gonna break to the next percentage, or it's gonna be around like some people. I heard someone saying that there's an issue there because it will round down. So you're not in a lot of cases you're not even gonna be stacking anything. It's just gonna maintain the same one. And even if you get to stack it up, in most cases you end up just killing them. And if the stack just falls off ever, well then, yeah.
Well, so, and I want to say I feel like I'm a smart person. I mean, maybe that's, you know, I don't know, bad thing to say. But I also, to me, my brain says there's no way to know until the hordes of Reddit and PoE and whoever plays the game has been unleashed on the meta to see what's actually true and false. So, I mean, I appreciate people who are upset. People ask me for my opinion, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I'll tell you in a month when we know the answer, because that's the easiest thing to me, at least, the easiest thing to sort of think about. It's just, I mean, I can think of all the times when somebody's like, wow, this is going to be so bad come 2.0. And then there's a build on Reddit where the person, you know, through YouTube is doing that thing and shitting on, you know, it's Uber Ethereum in 0.5 seconds because they like did it with a trap and they did it with the such and such. So, yeah. You know, I kind of want to take a long view on it. It's weird to me that people go so nuts when we really truly haven't seen the meta yet. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're all right. That's entirely possible. It just seems like so often, if you were there for the previous releases, there was somebody freaking out about something, and they weren't necessarily wrong. They just weren't thinking about it. Well, if you do it this way over here, it's actually super powerful. And GGG wants you to change to do it that way. And that's intentional, you hope, on their part. I mean, I think it is, given what I know of them. So, yeah, anyway, I don't know.
We fell into the trap of discussing these changes, both the frenzy power and shield shock changes, before before they're finished as well.
Right. No, exactly. That's why I'm saying I don't want to go too nuts until what's the finished product, and, you know.
But I think I don't. Okay, so I kind of disagree with the fact that we shouldn't, like, whether or not it should be discussed before the finished product, because it should. Well,
it should.
And also, we should make a big deal out of it, because it's important for them to. It's important for them to know that this is a big deal, and they need to communicate better. If we don't know, they need to get their foot out of their ass and actually tell us. Like, I'll say on that, I feel, yes, Chris came out and said in his post that they have been communicating badly. Okay, next step is that you start communicating better.
Yep.
Right. But he, you know, and I want to highlight something that was said in that post on the same topic, but, you know, maybe tangential. He did say something, or maybe it was in the official forums, about how having 8,000 hours of PoE experience does not qualify you as like a specialized expert in terms of getting hired under New Zealand law. So, you know, it is interesting how that is. It seems like that is a dilemma that they have a little bit in terms of they either have to release changes to everybody in the sort of a beta, or they have to try to keep it private, and then they have to deal with problems on both sides. And like we talked about it last week, Noogie was, and changed my mind, Ziggy. I was of the opinion that the beta was not a great process, but it really does. Maybe it's the best solution. And then if that's going to happen, they're going to have to just release these changes into the wild. And this is what's going to, they have to just deal with the blowback of people freaking out, perhaps over nothing. Anyway, I don't know, let's not beat it to death. I want to know, moving on, Sam's charge changes. Do you have a build you're going to play, Ziggy, for the 3.0? Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, there's like heaps of things turning around, but obviously we're just going to start with the new skills, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously we're going to want to do something with the new skills. So, I don't know. I still haven't decided which of those I want to play, though. I don't know, but I will say, like, these 3 new skills look like pretty good. Like, pretty good additions to the game mechanics-wise. I find them all to be somewhat interesting in some fashion, so that's pretty good. But there's been a lot of builds that have been kind of, like, standing out for 3.0, which I know because just recently I was getting a bit worried with like, oh, like it seems like elements are kind of dumpstered, and you know, what are we going to play now? But I don't know. There seems to be a lot of good choices. You got your SRS. You got Scorching Ray feels really good. I'm really liking Mines, Cascade, and Frostbolt Mines feel really good. Sunder's still very beastly, but it looks like a few interesting things that might sort of slip under the radar a bit. Just general cold and lightning damage builds with the new support gem changes for Innovate and
Hypothermia.
Is it Hypothermia? I think it might be. It might be the other one.
No, it's the, what's it called?
Yeah, I always forget the other one.
Yeah, it's the cold one that gives you frenzy. Ice Bite.
Oh, Ice Bite.
Ice Bite, that's the one. Which now adds like a shitload of cold damage, and I'm thinking things like High-Ons Raiders and Frost Blades and stuff like that. Maybe the new Charge Dash skill with High-Ons or something. These things look like they're going to be pretty good. Yeah, you're going to get some serious like. You have so much extra access to like elemental damage and stuff like that, you know. And the frenzy charges still work for those builds.
Do you think there's going to be more skills released? I thought there'd be more like 5, 6, 7 active skills, new active skills released.
I thought there was only going to be 3, but someone said recently they reckon there's going to be 5, or there was some words about 5, but I haven't seen anything official on that. I thought it was just going to be 3, and then the shitload of support gems that we got.
Right. Okay.
It was something. Maybe we get like 2 more. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So, what about you, Noogie? What have you been thinking about? I know you've been playing Glacial Cascade.
Well, I think I do agree that the straight alley builds, both like pure cold, pure lightning, are. I think those are probably some of the most underappreciated ones, especially with the new gems and some of the uniques that can scale well, like Huron's Fury and Stormcloud and like Dream Feather for cold. There's a lot of builds there, but then all the conversion skills, obviously. Glacial Cascade standing out as probably the most. I think Glacial Cascade to me stands out as the most versatile of all the spells, because it has good AoE and great single target. So
good.
Yeah, no, I think, and it's one of the few spells that can scale with the most flasks. Even if in nerf form, it really is like the skill to scale with flasks as well. So it has so much potential. ED,
what do you think about that?
With the new AoE, it's going to be crazy. So I've been contemplating. I'm playing a Chieftain, full conversion Avatar Fire, Glacial Cascade. It's doing really well. Very high HP and good single target, non-crit. And then I've been thinking about Trickster ED with the new changes to that as well. Those are my 2 builds I'm thinking about now.
I wanna bring something up. I just jogged my memory. When they released somebody released the data mined flasks, that then Mark came. Was it Mark? I forget exactly who. He was like, "This is what you get, idiots, for thinking that the data mine stuff was correct." But I want to say, me personally, I didn't comment because I was like jumping for joy. I was so happy that all the unique flasks got wrecked. So yeah, what do you guys think about the fact that it doesn't seem like. It seems like that sort of flask meta-ish is here to stay forever. I was hoping we were going to get more drastic changes than what already happened, because there was a nerf to what?
Every damage flask got nerfed.
Damage flask got nerfed, but not that much though compared to their first version. They're hugely nerfed, right? But like,
yeah,
it's just small change. I mean, it does feel like we're still in the unique flask meta going forward. Maybe I don't know.
I like this whole like concept of a flask meta though. Just like, I guess with Pathfinder's the one thing that kind of screws that up a bit. But
yeah,
like I don't really mind flasks being super powerful because everyone has access to flasks. It's only really Pathfinder that screws it up. So I guess when you say flask meta, it's more like the Pathfinder meta. But the other one I was kind of disappointed with was the Vinctar change. The rest I thought were pretty decent nerfs. The flask, yeah, seemed pretty good. But yeah, the Vinctar one, like, apparently they removed Mana Leech as well now. That wasn't in the original data mined list. So it's removed Mana Leech, and the shock was nerfed from what was actually apparently 30% shock down to 10% shock. Shock change, fine. The Mana Leech removal, it was kind of like, I don't know about that change. I feel like it should have been something addressing the life leech, but I guess their internal vision for Vinctar has always been that it's a very strong life leech item. I don't know.
I think that I think it's better just having one powerful thing on the Flask rather than doing everything for you. I think it's important to remove the. I think it's important to remove the mana leech. A lot of people are underplaying the damage and the mana leech, but it gave you immediate access to that mana leech on every single spell build. When you had it, you didn't need the boot enchant. You can get the so you can get the attack speed and the cast speed, right? So now you have to actually get the leech enchant on a lot of spell builds.
It's so shit getting mana leech on spell builds, like.
Yeah, it was too easy. Because if you think about it, now mana regen has more value because it's not on Minktars.
That's true.
I feel like every spellcaster I'm making now has Mind Over Matter, and that I feel like is only going to support that a bit more by having by taking the mana leech off Minktars.
Yep. Would you get rid of Pathfinder if you could, Ziggy? Or do you think it's fine?
Yeah, I don't even think it's an interesting ascendancy. It's just like all your flasks are stronger and you get to spam them as much as you want. There's no kind of like interesting change there. Like I guess you become a lot more like the only thing I like about it is the fact that you become a lot more reliant on your flasks, and if you kind of screw up and your flasks are dead, then you're gone. But the thing that I love about flasks and like that I want them to push the design more is like, you know, good timing of your flasks, good use of your flasks, like conscious use of your flasks. And Pathfinder just completely kills that. It's just like constant, just, you know, people talk about, people actually seriously ask, can I use a paddle pop stick? Can I use a paddle pop stick? Like they're asking that question. Like the fact that people are asking that question, I think is like shows that Pathfinder, I don't think should be in the game, because it's like.
I think people have been asking that question since forever, though.
Probably.
That's not really that
like
new. Flask has been OP since like the dawn of ailments, immunities and flasks.
It's also like CI as well, you know, that gets that question asked because people are just like, you know, I just want to press all my utility flasks. Yeah. But that I think is the problem. Like, I would like to see the flask system in general improved a bit more, so people never asked that question, because it's like these are very powerful buffs that I need to be conscious of when I'm using at the right times. That's what the flask system should be, I think.
Well, I mean, you think about a granite; it used to give you 10,000 armor. But I mean, you were only killing like 5 monsters every 2 minutes. I mean, granted, maybe that version of PoE was not the version people want to play. They like this version, but you know, anyway.
Just quickly on that, because I kind of disagree with this, like how Flask should be in the game. I think Flask are here because of where the game is. I don't think that the Flask system is inherently flawed. I think that they've just allowed us to get too much power, and we're getting too many charges of monsters because there's too much density, and so that screws with the balance of it. So now that takes away from the importance of clicking at the right time, because you're just killing 40 monsters the next second.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think that you look at I'm sure I'm the only person left who does this. I have 2 granites, or a granite and a jade, on my bar, because I'm just used to having. You had to have more than 1 flask of a defensive flask, because you wouldn't refill killing monster. You would not, if you didn't have 2, you then couldn't press it for every pack that you were running into, unless you had 2. And so once it became where people started running around with 1 of those flasks, which happened, you know, I don't know, invasion, you know, after invasion somewhere, you know, Forsaken Masters, I don't know. People, and then now people run a health-based character, and you have 1 health flask. I can't even.
I still think that's terrible, but
yeah. Okay, so we can argue that. I'm just saying the fact that it's even perceived that this could even be worth it, I think highlights what Nugi's talking about a little bit. So, well, I think we can all agree that kill Pathfinder, because that's on my list of.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree with that.
Nugi likes Pathfinder. So.
No, it's not that. It's just you're misrepresenting it, I feel.
I really thought that they were going to add more ascendancies over time.
I'm hoping that they still will. There's still time.
No, it'll never. It's never, because they've already moved on to Pantheon. Right.
Yeah, but they can reiterate on that as well.
I guess so. I just thought that every class would, every couple of patches, every class would get another different ascendancy.
Okay, in your own words, every time GGG releases something, we start with like the release 1.0, and then we go through iterations. The map system took a long time, right? So that was a long time ago when that was introduced. Then they added some tiers, and then they added the Atlas, and then we're like, so let's say Atlas is 2.0. If we say that the original map system was introduced in like open beta or whatever, and then Atlas is what, 2 point something, I don't know, like the right. So there's like an entire expansion in between. You could have an entire expansion in between before they reiterate on Ascendancy.
Okay, so I think your logic makes total sense. If not that we're guided by something else, and that's the inception, our inception of how things work in PoE.
Sure.
And the base level of the dream, where your top spins, is the passive tree, right? And then the next level is going to Ascendancy, and then the top level is now going to be Pantheon. So I think they're not changing the passive tree all that much. So that's why I think they're not going to change Ascendancies all that much. Again, I could be. And I think adding a class would be a huge change. Maybe not. It seems ripe for the opportunity, but
well, maybe not adding a class, but maybe adding branches to some of them, the existing ones.
Okay, sure.
Like,
yeah, okay.
Let's look at Chieftain, for instance. You could add another god in there, maybe with a cold affinity.
Yeah, please. I still don't understand why it's just fire as a. I don't know. It was always such a. It was such a weird. I don't know. It's just it's weird when they do stuff, and I'm just like. Why wouldn't it be if Caster Marauder is a thing? Why wouldn't it be Caster? Why does it have to be fire based only? I don't know. Whatever. It's okay. we can go nuts on that.
Yeah. I know.
Anyway, to end and wrap up, I do want to say thank you very much to the effusive, majestic, sporadic, coiffed, alert, chipper, amazing, beautiful, handsome. YouTube, I can't. That's okay. That's I've ran out of words. Ziggy D, who has graced us with his presence. Now, am I going to be wrong when I say Ziggy D StarCraft? You should just say all your thing because I subbed to you back when your names were different. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. So where can people find you?
I'm still ZiggyD StarCraft on Twitch and YouTube, but you don't need to worry about that these days. I mean, who uses like URLs? Who types URLs manually these days anyway? Just type ZiggyD into Google and it'll come up.
Yeah. And in case people don't know, he really does have a million I mean, he said 1,800, but I'm going to say 1,000,000,000 YouTube videos on so many subjects out there, and it is worth checking out, especially. Let me see. I'm trying to think. There might be some videos that feature this other really great streamer. His name is Moores something, and so I mean, anything with him in it, probably A+ material. So yeah. And then where can they find this, Noogie? Hopefully tomorrow, which we've been doing a good job of uploading the video.
We can find it on my channel. So if you click in nugiyen on the Googles and click enter, there's probably going to come up a little YouTube and the Twitch.
Yes, and then we are an actual podcast. You can go to the coffeetalkpodcast.com and subscribe, and your RSS and Android and iTunes and all the things. You can find us. And yeah, and I just want to say from the bottom of my very, very salty, rage-filled black heart, I want to thank Ziggy D for coming on the podcast.
Hey guys, well, thank you for having me on. It was good fun. I wish it was longer. You were like trying to speed it up, and I'm like, no, let's stay forever.
We could keep chatting.
We can have a little after hours if you're up for it. We can do that.
We can keep chatting.
The thing is, we've been getting a little flagged for going too long.
Yes, we have been getting a little yelled at.
We can end the official podcast and we can hang out a bit if you guys.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah,
I'm down. I'm down for that. It sounds good. But yes, for YouTube viewers, thank you guys for having me. And just remember one thing: free podcast, no bitching.
Yeah. Okay.